Andrew. Probably most of you already know that. I'm the weird redhead. Last 2 months ago, 3 months ago, wow, it was December. Wow. We did the console part 1, which is just your basic console commands. We're going to go a little more into file structure and permissions and stuff like that. Some basic commands. And if you have any questions, just holler them out. Preferably not throw anything at me. And we'll get them taken care of. This is part 2. This was originally going to be 6 parts, however it's exploded into about 10. A couple commands that we're going to work with. If anybody wants, I actually forgot to set this up. If anybody wants to be in a console on their Linux box, we can play around with these. Simple ones right now are just uptime. Simply just tells us how long the server's been up, how many users on average are connected, and average loads for hard drive, memory utilization, and CPU. Quite simple. Reset, if you're running a lot of remote programs or a lot of remote connections, this is something that can happen quite often, although not so much now that we have internet connections versus modems or analog connections. You can end up destroying or completely garbling your display, and it has a hard time connecting again, and you can't read anything. A lot of broken programs or programs that don't access correctly can end up screwing up your display. For instance, we just run this program, broken program. From this point on, our terminal's now out of sync and it has no clue what's being sent. Simply just running the reset command can go ahead and reset that. Here's another program for the console, is kill. Kill is going to be used to kill an individual PID, which is a process identifier. Every application that you have on your server is going to have a PID. Basically, let's see if we can, last time this didn't work. Great, it works. One of the easiest ways for us to find the PIDs on the system is to run a program called top. Top is going to give us all the PIDs on the system, who owns them, different information about their CPU utilization, memory utilization, and of course the command, which is actually run, the program is being run under. For instance, pick something that's running right here. Let's go ahead and shrink this list a little bit. Right now, this is what's running under my user account. We have a lot of KDE running right now because the GUI takes up a lot. S-Office, this would be our presentation package, and ArtsD, which is my sound daemon. It's for sale. And each one does have a number, which we can go ahead and kill. We're not going to kill these because the presentation is running on them. Here's a program, for instance, the program that is halted. Center ICQ, occasionally, it's a multiple, it's a chat client for the console that allows you to use ICQ, AIM, MSN, pretty much everything. Occasionally it does go out to lunch. Here's a screen capture of it actually going out to lunch. Database error, it halts. Well, we don't want to restart the server or restart the connection in order to do this. So what we can do is we can actually open up a new console. If it's a remote connection, we can connect in again and log in as the same user. Or if it is on a local connection, we can open up a new window under the GUI or switch consoles by hitting Control F1, which is what I did right here, where we switched over to another console on the actual local unit. And we can switch back. So we're going to go ahead and switch over to a new console. We've just connected and logged in, and we're just going to run top. This is just a quick breakdown of what we had here. Broken program, which is listed over here. Of course, these won't be color highlighted. Is PID 14960. we can go ahead and now exit top and say kill space in that pit. This will instantly, if possible, kill that process that's running. And as we look here, we switch back to the original console, the program has been terminated and we're back to the command prompt. Depending on how your connection is, the window may just close. Another option is kill all. Kill all can be very fun and very dangerous. Kill all allows us to actually kill a program by its name. We could say kill kill all and then the program name and anything that matches that. Thanks, Rob. Anything that matches it will be killed. So if you have 15 programs, processes with the name broken program, and you kill all broken program, it's going to kill all those processes, all those PIDs. Let's go back here. Say if I wanted to kill this KDE init, if one of these went out to lunch, I would not want to use this kill all program because this is going to kill every one of these processes, which I may want to do if I want to kill all of KDE, but don't actually want to do that. If you're root, it will kill every process on the system. If you're logged in as an individual user, it can only kill the processes that belong to yourself. So you can't log in as, for instance, Dodal, and then I can't start killing off Steve's processes, unless, of course, I log in as root and then violently kill Steve's processes. Again, same thing, exact same thing happens. We did a kill all broken program, and we terminate the broken program. Change mod. This is one that's going to take a little while to go over. Probably going to have to work on the board. Unix file permissions are really kind of hairy if you don't understand the basic idea behind how they work. With Windows, we have just a few attributes for the system. We have read-only, archive, system, and hidden. Windows 2000 and above do have some other options, but primarily this is what you're dealing with. With Unix or Linux, we have, these are our file permissions. And we look at them and they look ugly. In fact, it took me several years to try and figure out what this meant. I always had to look up on the internet, mainly because I was lazy. We'll take an example here of a program. Update to.jpg. We have -rw -r -r ownership belongs to Dodal, and group is users. You look at this, people will call this 644, and this is the attribute. It's kind of confusing. What does that mean? Well, we can break it down a little bit here. What we have here, this first bit right here actually tells us what type of file it is, or what type of information it is. If it's blank or null with this dash, it's a generic standard file, piece of data, a picture, anything. If this is set to D, it's a directory, and cannot be accessed as it. If it is a L, it's a link. It's a link to another file or directory. It doesn't actually carry its own permissions. It kind of borrows from the actual original file. These next three right here determine user status, what the owner of the file is allowed to do to it. If they're allowed to read, write, and this third one right here is execute. If it's a program that can actually be executed by the system. 4, 5, and 6 are the exact same thing, whether they can read, write, or execute, but it's for the group. And 7, 8, and 9, same thing. Read, write, and execute. But for miscellaneous or system, a lot of web servers will use this. Or you can set it so everybody on the system can access it. Break these down a little bit. Oh, I guess I already did. The owner permission bit is, again, read, write, and execute. Group and miscellaneous. How do we get that 644? Well, a couple ways you can do this. One is just to memorize them, but there is a reason behind how you get 644. This is just considered a binary bit in 3 portions. We ignore the first one because it will not show up. For every 3, this is assigned a value of 4, a value of 2, and a value of 1. So if this one is readable and writable, we have a value of 4 and a value of 2. This makes this section, these 3, 6. This one's blank, so we don't add in the 1. All right, we add those together for those 3 bits, and we do get 6. 1 plus 1 plus 0 in binary is 6. Don't think normal math here. Second one, it's read-only, so we have an R in that one position, so it's 4. The other 2 are blank, so we don't add them in. It's same as 4. Same with the third set. It's exactly the same. But what does this mean? 644. This file can be read by anybody on. This can be read by anyone in the group, but it can only be modified by the owner, because the write is only in the owner position. Why, I guess. Second bit, again, it tells us that the owner, we can only read and write to this one position right here. R lets us read it, W lets us write it for the owner. Third position, the group. Unix allows us to assign a group for people. So the owner may be me, but we can assign FOSUG as a group. So everybody in FOSUG can access this file, but they cannot modify the file. They can't delete it or change it. Fourth bit is miscellaneous special. If you have a web server or something, you want everybody on the web server to be able to access it. Apache, a lot of times will use this last section here. If you have any questions on how you would assign these to the system, I can go over them right now, and we can do some examples if you want.
So what are you doing the last set of 3, the miscellaneous?
That's used generally for the system or for individual programs. To my knowledge, Apache uses it, right?
What?
The third,
Last 3?
the last 3 for the miscellaneous.
No, the permissions. If you do like a man on change mode, the permissions are each an octal bit. Okay, an octal is just anything 0 to 7. There's 8 possible values in octal, right? And the first permission is owner. Then the second permission is group, and the third position, the E, is for everyone else.
So that's
it's just anybody else.
Oh, okay.
So whatever, if you ever make
Anonymous.
the third one a 7, then you may not be able to write to your file, but everybody else will be.
Oh, really? So
If you
members of
ever-
the first 2 are not included in the third.
If you ever set permissions to 007, that means you can't read it, write it, or execute it, but everybody else can read it, write it, and execute it. It's kind of unusual, but
Log on as anonymous.
okay, it's
It can.
kind of, you can do it. If you do it, you're kind of screwed. And an important concept that goes along with this is called UMask, and I don't know if you're going to cover that now or not.
No.
UMask is the default permission set that you're going to have when you originally create a file. Now, the interesting thing about UMask is that UMask is an exclusion. So, like, generally speaking, you'll see UMask be 022. And what 022 does is if you take the 2 and you make it into octal, which is 010, and wherever there's a 1 in the UMask, it's going to eliminate that bit from the mask, from the standard set of permissions that you would create for a file, which is 777. So when you have 777 as the permissions, which is 9 ones in a row, and you take a UMask of 022, which is 4 zeros, a 1, 2 zeros, a 1, and then another 0. It eliminates those ones, and it basically does an exclusive OR, and it eliminates the
Right status.
permissions that you want there. It takes the write status off of your files as you create them. So you end up with 755 for most of the files that you create, which if you look at them would be read, write, execute, read, execute, read, execute. So that's just kind of, it doesn't make any, it's not really important now, but as you get down the line and you're trying to run some services require specific UMasks, or they'll set a UMask that you're not used to. Also, when you're trying to do stuff like hide files from other people under Samba and stuff like that, you can set the UMask for a file system in Samba, so that no matter what they do, like when they upload the file, if you can make a file system write only or read only that way by just monkeying with the UMask, where they can send a file up and it UMasks it so that it's only readable by the owner of the Samba circuit or the Samba instance that was writing the file. It's pretty cool stuff. It's kind of the inverse of what you think of when you do like change mod to change the mode for the file permissions.
This is UMask? I'll have to look into that.
UMask.
I've never played with that.
Andrew,
Yeah, just do a man on change mod and it's all in there.
that fourth column,
Yeah,
It's
you
still
make
the owner's
Dropboxes,
column.
exactly.
Say again?
You
put
put
it
it
all
on,
FTP
over.
does that.
Uh-huh.
you
Still
put
the
it in your
owner's
bash
column.
RC script.
It's everybody.
well,
And
you
if
said
you want to
owners,
touch a file or anything like that,
Owners
then
would
it'll
be
just,
the
like
first
if you want to
person
have
right
it just
here.
readable,
that's right. Why
By
wouldn't the
user.
owner be able to
Well, like
execute?
Qmail will complain if
I'm not
your
sure
UMask
exactly
isn't
why.
like 020.
It probably has to do with the way it reads it.
Qmail will complain.
Looks like an owner would
Like
have
if
have it
in
automatically
Qmail, if
able
your
to
mailbox
execute.
is writable by anybody
Not
other than you,
necessarily.
Okay.
it won't deliver
You
mail
can,
to
the
you.
owner, you can set
It's
an
a-
owner, but you can actually set,
It's a security feature.
the next one I'll show you how to set
Yeah,
the owner.
SSH
But we can
complains,
actually say,
well, at keys
blank.
specifically
We can actually put this
complain
blank all the way
if,
across
sure,
the
if
file.
anybody else can write
Inaccessible
or
by
read
anybody except for
your
root,
keys
or
in your
change
directory too.
permissions. But we can set the owner as a person, and the owner may not actually be able to view their own files.
Yeah, I don't, guys, I can't figure out why. Well, looks like the owner would always be the root, wouldn't he?
I don't know why you would want to do that either, but
Generally speaking, getting in the habit of putting in all 4 bits for the mode of a file is a good thing too, because that way you get rid of set UID on accident. Like whenever I set a permission, I always set it 0755 so that it's not accidentally SUID whoever. So that you don't actually, if you're in as root and you're creating a shell script and you want everybody to be able to execute it, but you don't necessarily want them to be able to execute it as root, right? If you don't put in that 0755, that 4th bit, the most significant bit, tells it whether it's set UID or set group ID, etc. So if you do 4 as the first one, that sets the user ID for running that script. If you do 1, it sets the group ID to whoever owns the file when it runs that script. That's how you get a lot of things like, well, let's see, what are SUID? Ping is, or excuse me, traceroute's got to be SUID to be run by anybody because it does socket operations. There's a number of things you can look. If you do a long listing on the SBIN directory, you can grep for that actual extra item. It shows up instead of the R, it'll show up as a lowercase s or a capital S, depending on if it's set UID or set group ID.
in the permissions,
In the permissions, if you do a long listing, you can do a grep SWX. And I
you
forget
do the
it.
SBIN.
Anywhere where an SUID might exist, so under SBIN, it can be under bin.
You should grep for.
Grep for SWX. There you go.
That's called a sticky bit, right?
No.
Or SUID.
That's the SUID or SGID. Add the directory.
What?
Yeah, see there it's got SGID, that there, what is it, root shadow, Unix 2 check PWD, that's got set GID right there.
Oh, okay. SR? Or? Right.
Maybe it's RWS, I'll have to look. I always forget. Stats helpful on this too.
Yeah, it's RWS, like card CTL is RWS.
Yeah, login, bin login, should be as well. Nope. What is it? Yeah, passwd is a good example because it has to execute as root to actually be able to change the files. Yeah, and if you do a stat command, STAT, on /bin/passwd,
Stat?
stat, yeah. Hopefully you have it on your system. Stat is a wonderful, wonderful
Alright, stat what?
/bin/
/bin/passwd.
SWD?
Yeah.
Or SBIN?
No, bin passwd. You know, to change your password?
Oh.
PASSWD.
PASSWD. You don't have it on your system?
Oh, I guess I don't.
No, you have to have it on your system.
Stat, yeah.
You have to have passwd somewhere.
Just do a where is PASSWD.
It's usually 2. Is it? House W.
Where is a little easier.
No.
This is Seuss, so it might not.
It's user bin. I don't know why it's in user bin.
User bin?
Yeah, it's. I got Seuss on here, so. Seuss is the king of.
Yeah, relocating crap.
We'll put our files wherever we want to.
Okay, stat. Very informative item. Okay? Tells you what links it has. It tells you the access right there, which is very nice. It shows you the full permission set. So you see it says 4755. That 4 makes it set user ID. Now if you changed it to 1755, it would be RWX, RWS, RX, or R space S, because it would make it set group ID. So it would set the group to whoever the group owner of that file is when it runs. So like with set UID in this instance, it sets the user, the effective user ID to 0 because it's owned by root whenever you run passwd. That's why if there's a problem with passwd and you can, you know, do a local exploit, that's where most local exploits come from, is from some set UID program locally on your system. You log onto the system and you run that program with, you know, crap as input, and you overrun the buffer that it's got or whatever it's lacking, and then you get it, you trick it into running bin bash.
You got root.
And you got root because it runs bin bash as root because it's set UID.
Then you pretty much bork from there.
Yeah.
So
That's
anyway,
not
sorry
a
for
good
the
thing.
distraction, but that's what that 4th bit is.
Yeah, I never played around with that 4th bit. Then again, I don't do servers too much, and I've never really thought.
Always set it to 0 unless you are absolutely sure that you want it to be SUID or GUID or GID.
So when you do a change mod, you actually do that 4th one right here.
I said, yeah, I do 0664.
All right.
So that way I know that there's no way it can accidentally be executed as me.
All right. Well, then that's what we should do. If we're going to change it, we'll go ahead and do that. 0664 because we don't want problems coming up. And we can see it.
Putting the 0 in makes it user ID.
Putting
the
the
edit
0
this
in
then.
doesn't change the executing effective ID. Anytime you execute a program in any Unix, it executes it as some user. Okay, so when it executes, if you have SUID or SGID, which is set user ID or set group ID, the first thing it does when that bit's set is it looks at the permissions in the file and it says, oh, okay, this is SUID. So I'm not going to run as the user who called me. I'm going to run as whoever owns that file. So if root created the file, which is most common for use for SUID, it runs as root when it runs, no matter who runs the program. Same thing with set group ID. If you're, John Doe : users, you're part of the users group. Instead of running as John Doe users running that program, it runs as root users because it's SUID. And then with set group ID, if it was, root was part of whatever other group, say, wheel, okay, then it would run as John Doe : wheel, and it runs as the wheel group. So it would inherit all of the group permissions that wheel has. So anywhere that wheel could write as a group, that process can then write as that group, and it will look like that group wrote that information. So it's really important. Otherwise, anytime you execute something, like when you execute ls, it runs as John Doe users. Your user, your group. It just does a fork and it runs as that. So that's what, that's the big thing that's kind of like, the hardest thing to grasp with Unix permissions is who the hell is actually at the end of the process running this process. And it's the thing that, like, I got a junior at work that it kills him. He'll run NCP mount, which is to mount netware volumes under Linux. He'll run it under sudo every time, and then gripes to me, why can't I write to my own F drive? Because you're stupid and you keep mounting it as root. It mounts with root, and it mounts with root permissions. You try and write to a root-owned file system, and it tells you to go away because you're, piddly little user. And he'll do this once a week. Easy. I can't write to my F drive. Well, that's right. Did you mount it using sudo? Well, yeah.
Stop that! Another thing we can do is chown. Chown allows us to change the ownership, either the owner or the group. Very simple command. Chown the username, if we wish, the colon, the group, and then the file name. Right now, you see the file is owned by Dodal and the group users. We can change that and change just the group, or we can change the user and the group. This file now belongs to Steve at FOSUG. I'm using you a lot as an example. Don't ask me why. Took good care about you, Steve.
Question.
Sure.
Can anyone change it or just the owner?
The owner or root. Or anybody with permissions within the group. So anybody within the FOSUG should be able to access that if they actually assign that in their account. One way to find files is to use either where is or locate. I typically use locate, but
What's really funny is you can use which also to search for stuff on your path. And if you look at which, oftentimes which is an alias for type minus P, I believe it is.
alias for what?
Type minus P. I think it is. Let me see. Yeah, I think it's type minus P or type minus F. It's really kind of odd. But you can just type in which if you're looking for stuff that's on your path. And then space and then the file. And, which path WD. There you go.
Huh.
But it must exist on your path. It only searches your path. It's linked into the same kind of idea as if you push tab twice, then it'll list everything that's executable on your path. The thing about which is that it's not consistent across all Unices. So some Unices it's aliased as type minus P, which is an old bashism thing, but that's actually part of the shell, and you don't have to access a Berkeley DB or wait for it to be reloaded or anything like that. Because everybody's seen the locate process, the slocate process running on their system yet. you log in and you notice your disk crashes for, 2 minutes. When you first bring up your machine, that thrashing is coming from slocate. That's trying to rebuild the database of where is all this stuff, which is why you type in where is blah.
Well, this is what we can do. We can run where is, and then the file name, and it will tell us exactly where the file is located. Especially useful in a system like SUSE, where everything moves around from every minor revision. Password tells us where it's located. It gives us actually all the options for files. We got user bin, a bunch of things. We're not actually going to be looking for all those, but it does give us all the particulars. Another way you can do that is running locate, which is typically what I use. Of course, it may not be on the SUSE system. It's not. Okay. That's what I get for using locate for SUSE. Mounting a device. This can actually be hairy. We're just going to brush over it basically. It's how to mount a block device on the system. A block device could be anything. It could be a hard drive, a CD-ROM, a memory card, any type of media storage or data storage that can be used, or you have compatibility with in your kernels. We're just going to use a CD-ROM. What we're going to do is we're just going to choose a point on the system where to place this mount. To a place where we can store this information or link this information. Typically you'd use the directory mount, MNT. Just do a listing here to make sure all the files we want are there. We actually have to have a place for this to be. A directory is typically what we use. We're going to be mounting a CD-ROM, so we'll just use this one CD-ROM that's already there. If it's not there, we do have to make this before we do the mount. We have to make a directory to store the actual hardware. The command is very simple. It is, we mount the device, the actual device with dev CD-ROM, and then space the actual point where we're going to place it. For most of the newer installations of Linux, it's going to figure out the file types. It's going to figure out what's necessary to actually mount it. In some cases, you will actually have to specify what type of file system it is, whether it's a Riser FS, FAT32, Microsoft Joylet for CD-ROMs. Do you have a comment?
No, you didn't. It sounded like you said toilet. And then I translated it to Joliet because that's how I say it. But
I always say
Joylet's
Joliet.
fine. I mean, it's tomato, tomato. It's just, it sounded like toilet from over here.
Is it really that different, though?
Huh? I don't know. It's Joliet, but that was just really funny.
In this case, it's already figured it out. It is a block device. It is write protected because it is a CD-ROM. CD-ROMs are not writable as block devices, like a hard drive. They actually have to be burnt. And at this point, it now has just been mounted. It hasn't given us any information. It automatically mounted it as read-only. At this point, we can actually mount something as read-only if we want, or we can change how we want it accessible. If we change the directory and we do a directory structure in there, we now see the contents of that CD-ROM in that directory structure. Because Linux does not, we don't have the A drive, B drive, C drive. Everything is basically done in a directory structure. So we have no limit of how many type of block devices we can mount. Unmounting, very simple. We just make sure we are completely out of the directory and no applications are currently using it. Because if we're in the directory, if we're in that CD-ROM directory and we try to unmount it, it's going to say no. So we do have to back out of the directory and we can unmount the block device. And this is pretty much it for this one. If anybody has any questions, we can go over any individuals or go from there.
I don't know what a mount is.
Mount? Well,
That's pretty important.
Mount is,
and writing what's the configuration file you're probably mounting?
FS tab is going to be for automatically mounting. We can go ahead and damn Zeus.
Were you about to use Ed?
What?
Never mind.
Ed? What's Ed? You met
No, it's just an editor.
No, I prefer Nano or Pico, and I don't have any of those.
About bye.
I don't like Vi.
But why not?
I know.
Because I can never remember the damn keys. Here's the FS tab. This is a very simplistic FS tab, actually. What we have here is our devices, where we want to have them mounted, the file type right here, various options. Okay, this is kind of ugly. And what is this? I never bother with this last one. Rob?
What?
The last column here? The 1100?
It's to check, see if the file system's clean.
Yeah, one is a check, one is I can't remember. You're gonna kill me, Drew.
That's okay.
Let's see.
Do a man FS tab.
That's what I'm doing.
That's what I just started right now.
Fourth field, fifth field is used for file systems that can be used by the dump command to determine which file systems need to be dumped.
Last
Sixth field is used by FS check to determine the order in which the checks are done at reboot time.
Or upon boot up, right?
Reboot time, whatever, I guess.
So if we want something to come up on boot, we would just add another one in here. If we wanted our floppy to automatically mount on boot, we would just add in the floppy drive here to the actual device, which is dev FD0. Some systems it'll be dev floppy. Where we want to locate it, again, this is SUSE. I don't know, they change everything around. They're having it in a directory called media and then a directory called
I
floppy.
already did.
Typically, on most other installations, this would be MMT/floppy. This is the type. Sub-FS, I don't know what sub-FS is. I'm assuming it's for automatic mounting.
No, that's the file system type, whatever the heck it is.
Sub-FS for floppy?
Yeah, I just struck it.
I always set this to auto. And it will automatically figure that out. You can just say auto right here. And then these are the options. Right here, where it says HD81, this is my Windows partition. It creates a mount point at Windows, and then C, the file system is NTFS. This right here is telling us that it's mounting at read-only, which is kind of not needed for NTFS anyway. It's by default going to be read-only. Again, probably all these here we just usually say auto, unless it's really odd. That's
Why would I would tell them be no auto?
no auto.
Sys FS.
This doesn't, no auto. I believe this is,
That tells it when mount -A is given as a command that it doesn't try and mount it.
again,
No, automatically. When you first start up your system, the
No
system
auto.
issues the mount space -A, which means to mount all file systems in FS tab. That tells it, no, please don't mount me. If it has auto in it, it'll mount it if it's there and available. What that does is keep stuff like removable media from croaking. You don't always have a floppy in your drive, especially when you boot up. So if it issues a mount all, you don't want it to just automatically try and mount a floppy and give you an error.
then you have no at time, right? I thought that's,
No A time is don't write the there's anytime a file is accessed or change anytime a file is accessed at all, it'll write a new access time to the properties of that file, and it's a performance gig. It just makes it faster. You only need to use it if you're really worried about that kind of thing. When was the last time this file was accessed and by whom?
you don't care.
Yeah.
But that's,
Okay,
and
Scott, you see me?
if this is in here, we don't have
Yeah,
to
I'm
actually do the whole mount command. So if I say
You can take it
mount
off
media
speaker, right?
floppy, it's going to automatically look in the
You
FS
can take it
tab
off the speaker,
and
right?
find the device and find all the options and automatically add them to it.
What's 1100,
Yeah.
Which one?
all the way in the right fifth field?
This one? You said for
0011.
having to do with it scans on the beginning, scan file system. I just always set them as 00. Never found a real need to have them scan. I guess that's going to allow us to scan. So you said,
The first one is whether or not dump accesses it, it's that fifth field. And then the second one is whether or not, what order it scans them on boot up with FS check. Because FS check launches in parallel mode, so it'll scan like all of your file systems if you wanted to on boot to see if they're corrupt or whatever. And that just tells it, if you give it a 0, it tells it just don't scan the file system.
see, I'm even learning these things. It's amazing what you learn when you don't actually use them. SUSE is not a good example for this.
What, for an FS tab?
Well, just in general.
It's got a lot of options.
It's got a lot of options in there.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, some of the options, all of those options are documented in the mount man page. So if you're really curious about what the hell's going on, you can just dig into the mount page, or the mount man page, and it's there. I mean, that's how I figured out what the hell was going on in there when I was digging around. There's also one that's called user, I think it is. Yeah, users. That one means that any user can mount it. You know how usually it tells you have to have root permission to mount stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Users invalidates that. It makes it so that anybody can mount that file system, which is a good thing for a
CD-ROMs, floppies,
Yeah.
memory cards.
You don't want to make it like impossible for somebody to access, you know, their data just because you hate users. Well, I'm sorry, was that out loud?
GID equals users means what?
That'd be the group ID.
GID is group ID.
So
Yeah.
when HDA1, the Windows
Okay,
drive
is
mounts,
anything back yet?
it'll write with permissions from the user group.
Yeah.
It shouldn't actually, well, this can't write, but the GID, is that what that would do? I've never used it. I never used any of these.
It means
options.
read-only. Users can mount the volume. The group ID that's going to be assigned to that particular volume is users, and the UMask is 0002.
Which means
So-
it strips right off of everybody else, but it leaves everything else intact.
Right, just the non-users.
Now, you understand that UMask is for the mount point. It changes the mount point's permissions to that UMask.
But not the data on the drive.
Not the data on the drive. Data on the drive has whatever it has.
You can
Okay,
mount it
there, that
twice.
one's up.
Different-
Is there a point of doing this when you're already mounting it and read
Okay,
only,
hang on,
or is
let
that
me do the
just
other
for the?
it's
one. I don't know, man. Are you a manipulator? Yes.
not- But you could mount the
Okay,
same.
I'll talk to you later, Scott. I'll fix the second one in just a second. Bye.
You could mount the same file system.
Sorry, guys. I'm on call this weekend, so I
could mount
have
the
my
same-
service plan.
You could mount the same file system twice
Yes.
at different mount points.
No, Mount
With
won't let you
different-
do that.
Yeah.
Mount thing.
It
Well,
will.
well,
Well,
it'll
I've
tell you
done
that
it.
it's already
It may
mounted.
complain unless you're mounting them both like read-only.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. It should complain.
I've done it with
unless it's like
CD-ROMs
a
and all
network
that.
file system. But I wouldn't recommend it. If you're going to mount the same file system to do 2 different points,
Link.
especially if it's an actual block device, yeah, I would just use a symbolic link. Because usually when you're wanting to do that, you're wanting to mount the file system at one point at the root of the file system, and then you're wanting to use the other one to mount further down inside of it, you know, or make the name easier or whatever. That usually is the pervasive reason for mounting the same file system twice. So just using a link to say, /mount/CD-ROM/ this product / this version / this executable, right there. A good example is you see it all the time in like /bin. There's an application installed in opt, but they want to have it on the path and they don't want to add opt whatever to the path. They just put a link to the actual executable file in bin, and there you go, or a directory or whatever. Symbolic links rock. They make managing a server tons easier.
Forget just servers, just life in general.
Well, yeah, sorry, I'm server centric and I live at the command line, so I'm kind of a freak. But well, it actually doesn't have much to do with my computer usage, but it's I would not recommend trying to mount read-write the same physical disk or volume twice. That just seems incredibly fraught with peril to me. Because then what do you do if you write to the same file via both paths and then do a sync? I don't know.
Cry, mostly.
Huh?
Cry.
Well, see, things like Fiber Channel do multipath, but it does multipath to the same logical device. To the OS, it looks like, dev whatever. It looks like the same physical device. So you're never going to get the problem. The multipath is just a redundancy thing. So, speaking of Sam, if you want to talk, we'll talk later. I've been playing with the Sam this week. I do one.
Any other questions or? Okay, well, if anybody has any questions, just pull us aside or ask, and we'll see what we can do. Get you taken care of.